Hello and welcome everyone. So, Telltale's Walking Dead Season 3, also known as The Walking Dead: The New Frontier, has just released its fifth and final episode of the season, and I figured I'd give a few thoughts on what I felt the season was like compared to the previous two, and just overall I felt like what the outcome was of it all. Now, I really enjoyed the first two seasons, especially the first one, which had a lot of really good big moments in that really resonated with me, and I think what I really liked about the first season was that it was very much about what you do to survive rather what you do to become a good or bad person, because the whole Paragon Renegade system is something that I do think has been a bit overused in times like this, and I felt being a zombie apocalypse where your mission is to survive is a big debatable thing as to how you want to, which way you want to go. Do you want to survive or do you want to keep your humanity? And they do ask some very productive questions, I felt like, So, I really have been keeping up the series just because I've really liked to see. To be fair though, I haven't played the Telltale's the Michonne The Walking Dead episodes just because it didn't really seem. I don't know, it just didn't seem like my kind of thing to play and stuff. Not because I've got any hatred against the character Michonne, it's just that I wasn't really liking the fact that we've got a character who we know is going to be alive because, guess what, she's in the TV show, so why should I be invested if I know she's going to live? So, but anyway, as to my thoughts on it, which I'll give my non-spoiler rating for it, is that I think it was okay. I do not think it was as good as the previous two seasons, but there was still some things that I did really enjoy out of it. I thought there were some very good character moments for it and stuff. There was a real sense of family that was addressed throughout it all, and overall there was some good bits here and there and stuff. However, I did have some problems with the case of how the story just kind of progressed in a way. It didn't really feel like there were really moments to take a chance to get to know these other characters. We've got these main cast characters and we've got these characters that we know barely anything about. So I do wish that we could have gotten to spend more time about it, because one of the things I did like in the first Walking Dead season, and even the second season as well, is that we did get those moments where we get to stop and actually talk with these other characters and get to know them, get to know their past and stuff like that. And this could be a case of the fact that a lot of the main characters, of course, we are getting flashbacks to their previous life. They are talking about them, but as I said, I want to kind of know what these other people's lives are like, and we didn't always get that much of it. So those of you who don't know, rather than playing as Lee and Clementine this time around, we're now playing as a new character called Javi. Now, one of the things that's quite a bit hard in video games nowadays is how you sort of craft a really interesting character, but you still give the player control over them. For example, would anyone really say that Commander Shepard is an interesting character? I wouldn't say so. I'd say you yourself try to make them interesting by the decisions that you make, but that's because of you, not necessarily because of what they are like written as. But I think characters like Lee and Clementine are very much in that middle ground area where they do have this backstory, they do have these flaws that really are brought out, but you yourself get to decide as to whether you think, hey, these flaws are okay, or these flaws should be addressed. Okay, so I think that's an advantage that is very well done in these kind of games. Now, I feel like every season with their main characters is very much trying to give a sort of a story behind it all and stuff like that. Lee's story in the first one was very much about him trying to get redemption over the fact that, as we find out, he's a convicted criminal for murder, and him trying to protect this little girl is very much him trying to redeem himself for his crimes in a way, even if, it's a zombie apocalypse right now, everyone's a clean slate and all that stuff, but he still feels like he needs to own up to that and stuff. So that's the story I really, really enjoyed. And Clementine's whole story in the second season was very much about her trying to be on her own, her trying to move on from Lee being there to protect her, and whether she feels that whether you feel that you can show compassion in this world, or whether you've got to be alone, you've got to really shield yourself away from people. And that's very much reflected, of course, in the ending, of course, where you decide on whether it's better to be alone in this world and just rely on yourself, or whether that you maybe do want to have someone there to protect you, and you need company, you need to have someone there to keep your humanity alive. And it was done very well. Maybe not as good as the first season, I thought, but it still was done really well. In the first season, the theme is very much trying to capture a very family bond kind of situation, in the fact that how much do you stick with your family to the end, even if you feel that maybe they are wrong in the situation, which we haven't really seen before. You know, that Lee and Clementine, they've been very much on their own and stuff. They haven't really had family members, you know, blood relatives around to really have that kind of theme come into play. But we have sort of had those bits though where we've had to sort of decide that do we go with who we've been with all this time, or do we, you know, try to break off to those who we feel are actually making more sense out of the whole situation. So that's definitely brought up quite multiple times, I feel like, before, but here it's definitely put up a lot of times where we have to make the decisions as to do we stick with who we feel is right, or do we do what we think is best for the family. But of course we do have Clementine who comes back into the fray, and definitely it's interesting seeing how she's changed since season 1, and just this gap between the last season, of course, and where she's really sort of matured into the girl that she is. And you know, it is one of those things where you have to be reminded she's like probably 13 years old now, so maybe 14, and yeah, it is pretty shocking about how adult she feels and stuff like that. But when the fact that we've been with her this whole time, we kind of know what she's like and stuff. It's funny how the character of Holly, I think from the first season, how she was a character I really liked and stuff, and we sort of see how Clementine has sort of evolved into her a bit as a loner who is sort of surviving on her own and sort of has her own techniques and stuff to surviving. So yeah, that's something I like a bit, is how she sort of morphed into her a bit in a way. The one point that has been brought up by people that I kind of do have to agree with is that there are moments in this game where you have to decide, are you going to side with Clementine or are you going to side with these other people? And let's be honest here, we know a lot more about Clementine and we do sympathise with her because we've been seeing her a lot of her chunk of her life. So naturally we're going to go with her. Overall, I think her story, while I wish I could have gotten to see more of her story and stuff like that, we do get some flashbacks here and there. Now, the flashbacks do change, of course, depending on whether the choices you made from the previous season. If perhaps you've jumped over consoles right now and you don't have your choices saved over, you can very easily just do a little questionnaire thing at the end, at the very beginning of the first episode, to move your choices over, which I did like. You know, I was like, okay, thanks for that, you know, because I was that there actually were some things that I did kind of want to change a bit from my previous playthrough of The Walking Dead, so I was glad to be able to fix a few things, because one of those endings of season 2 was super emotional, and I'm glad I got to change it to that ending. And the focus of the season, as the name suggests, does focus on a group of raiders known as the New Frontier. Of course, as we start to see, they aren't really so much a raiders, they are our own civilization of people. And I definitely will admit, at the very first, you kind of see them as being this really intimidating force. As it sort of goes on, though, we just sort of see that, okay, they're actually just a normal group of people, apparently. So, I was a little disappointed at the sort of direction that went. You know, I kind of wish that we could have gotten a bit more intrigue into the whole politicalness of their and you know, of their code of survival, as it were, to what it is and stuff. And especially considering the fact that obviously with the TV show going on and stuff, like, we've had these different parties of people who have all had their different ways of surviving, and seeing it, you know, something different from that would be nice. This time, of course, is the first time they're using the new engine for the game, and I thought it actually looked pretty good. You know, there wasn't really much glitching going on now and then. There were a few, though, like a few times where I was just like, okay, that was pretty off, and there'll be some sort of textures that go off. And it is worth mentioning that the game did crash on me twice in like one episode, so that was definitely quite a bother, I have to say, and I wish that maybe could have been fixed, considering that with how many games have they put out now, Telltale, since the first Walking Dead. So that's definitely a bit of a disappointment, to say the least, you know. But besides that, though, I still think it looks pretty good. You know, the character facial animations are looking a lot better nowadays, and Yeah, I will say the character movements, they still look a bit weird, even like even just when they're walking and stuff. I'm just a little bit distracted by it sometimes. So now there are some things from the TV show that I feel like do influence the show. Like I said, it is this group of people fighting off against an entire community of people who have their own code and stuff, which is something we've seen from the TV show quite a bit often recently, you know. But there are some other things. For example, we have the character of Jesus who appears in the game here, and I definitely do find his inclusion to be a little bit unnecessary. Like, I really do feel like you could have inserted a character who was very interesting, but the whole thing of say, you know, when it's like, my name's Jesus, you know, and it's just like, did you just put that in there so you could put it in the advertisement and say that, hey guys, it's Jesus, your character you love from the show, he's in the game? It's like, can you just, you know, put someone who's different, you know? Because, like I said, I just feel like having Glenn and Herschel appear in the first episode of season 1 was really just there so they could say, hey, look, these guys, they look different from their TV counterparts. This is not based on the TV show. This is based on the comic books. It's their own separate universe. You're not going to have Rick and all that stuff like that. But just diving into some major spoilers here with the final episode, I'll go ahead and say that I did feel that the season finale could have been a bit better, you know, like I kind of got the idea that it was going to be this big revolt of, you know, you forming your own side while the others are going to, these badder people from the New Frontier are going to be fighting against you. I didn't really get that and stuff. It was really just hey, let's save the New Frontier, let's save this civilization, and that was just like, is that it? Like, was that just it, you know? And it didn't really feel like it was good. You've got the whole thing with your relationship with Kate in it, which I thought was okay and stuff like that. There was a sense of awkwardness, of course, the fact that, you know, it is your brother's wife who, you know, is still married, you know, technically, you know, so there was definitely a bit of like decision, like, okay, should we do it and stuff like that, and even just like the question of like, is she kind of my type? You know, you're like, you know, just because you're like, she's like not really the most responsible adult, as we find out early on, but you know, there are some bits, you know, where I do start to care for her and stuff, especially when you feel like her life's on the line. The one big emotional moment I did really love, of course, from the season was the emotional moment when David finds out, of course, about hubby and Kate and stuff like that, and it actually was a really emotional confrontation. You know, I was very defined that I wasn't going to fight him, you know, that this is my own fault, I deserve to get hit right now, and yeah, I actually kind of really enjoyed that bit, you know, and stuff. And I will say, from what I found out, you know, you can either have the decision of you either go after him or you go to save the town. I went to go save the town and just told that, oh, David, yeah, he's dead. You know, it's just like, you don't really feel like I get a moment to mourn that fact. I will say I did like the way that Clementine's story ended off, you know, so that was definitely a good thing about it all. And you know, the whole bit with him cutting Clementine's hair was a really emotional moment. I felt they had the best bond throughout the whole season, so I was very happy to see that. But overall, I will say that while I definitely don't think this is really hit home with the previous 2 seasons, I still felt that there were some decent bits here and there and stuff like that. There was some big decisions made throughout that I was kind of like regretting maybe afterward. Could have been better, but I still think it did decently enough, and we'll have to find out how things are really impacted for us all when we get to season 4, of course. Though, wouldn't hurt to, I don't know, maybe get season 2 of The Wolf Amongst Us or Tales of the Borderland first, because would really like to see those games continue. Very much so. So thank you all for tuning in. For those of you wondering, yes, I am still working on my scripted videos. I apologise if these thoughts on videos have just been going over a bit too many now at the moment, but I assure you my next one will be coming up very soon. I've just got a few things to take care of for it. But again, if you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe for even more Hot Goss goodness, and you can check me out on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks again, and hey, be seeing you around.